debate in the sense that the individuals are not going to be advocating a fuel over another, because we and you are all mature enough to know that there is no single answer. The mix of fuels that any region or country or city will choose depends on the physical, geographical and economic situation.
When I was a kid, my teacher tells me, hey, in 50 years you're going to run out of oil. And then at that time as a kid, like, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? And today, we are still having a reserve of more than 100 years. In fact, that number keeps changing, right? Depending on what's the price of oil you assume, and the reserve will change.
Coal is cheap, but of course we all know it's nasty. Well, who cares? We all care, don't we? I don't hear anything.
As a European by birth and citizenship, I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that the US success in gas replacing some of their coal has just driven their surplus coal to the European market, so that coal use in Europe has increased. So the world has not benefited.
As you know, Singapore has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to eliminate dependence on imported water. It spent nothing to reduce its dependence on imported energy. And I remind you of James Lovelock's statement. Don't forget, a modern city like London or New York, or of course Singapore, would convert to a camp like one of those in Darfur in 1 week if the electricity was switched off.
You have to have the correct geographical formations before you can have hydro plant. And think about the life cycle of these technologies again. Before you could have hydro, let's go to China and think about the Three Gorges Dam project. Massive destructions of land. Huge areas get flooded. Where used to be trees, homes to many people, they were displaced. And now you have the Three Gorges Dam. So they're good in providing very clean electricity at end use, but the entire life cycle requires a lot more thinking.
So, I hope you're confused, because if you're not confused, you're not learning.
Where in Singapore could we put a nuclear power plant? So our study looked at 33 alternative locations and weighed them against 14 factors. We thought that the best choice would be to put the plant underground on Sumatra Island, one of the southern islands currently used as a dump.
When I was in NUS, which I left a week ago, I had an honours student in geography, and she did a survey of 100 random people at MRT stations mostly, and gave them a form to fill in about nuclear power in Singapore. They were asked, if nuclear power was safe for Singapore, would you be happy that it was placed offshore island underground? And 46% of those asked said yes, they would be happy. And obviously 54 were unhappy. I found that very surprising. This was 1 year after Fukushima.
When I was at school, and probably when you were at school, the answer was going to be nuclear fusion, but it's 50 years away. Is it still 50 years away?
I'm not prepared to say, well, I think you can have this in 10 years or in 20 years, but to my mind, we will have it within 50 years.
They will come before the timeline of 2030. So definitely within the next 50 years, you will see fusion reactors.
Would you bet your future pension on that?
If I work for the nuclear industry.
Carbon footprint and focus on clean energy is coming from European countries which have enjoyed, burning up all the fossil fuels and coal in the past and now want to turn clean. Whereas there are countries like Indonesia, India, China, we say, hey, we haven't gotten a chance to destroy the environment a bit. So What do you guys think about this?
The energy use per person of the developed country, of the developing country in the projected future is still going to be less. Okay, so overall they're using less.
You know, we keep discussing about climate change, carbon capture storage, cleaner technology from that perspective. But if you look at China, in fact, one of the most pressing problems, and this problem actually kills, is environmental pollutions. By burning a lot of coal, the flash that fly into the atmosphere, the PM 2.5, is something that actually kills someone. So really, we have to look at both sides of the equations. One side is climate change, which doesn't kill yet, and the other side is really pollution that actually kills.
If you go to Shanghai, you go to Beijing, you go to Hong Kong, on a bad day, on a really bad day, the sky is really bad and you hardly can breathe. Again, a lot of companies that I advised before, they're actually moving headquarters out of these places because they could not get people to work there. They cannot get the aspect to actually locate in these regional offices, and they have to move them to somewhere else because the environment is so bad.
You know, we have this debate where developed countries are trying to impose carbon limits on developing countries. But one of the things that we probably didn't discuss in detail is that they're also very hesitant to share technology which would help the developing countries improve energy efficiency and also limit their carbon emissions. So could anyone shed more light on why that is the case and how we can break this deadlock, so to speak?
We have this device. It came out in 2007. At that time, there was nothing in China. And you can blame the Chinese for being an imitator and look at the kind of products they have today. You'll be amazed that the imitators sometimes can catch up and come up with their own inventions or innovations. So you may say that today there's still barriers, huge barriers for technology transfer, that people don't want to share technology, but you also got to look at the other side of the story, the assimilation capacity. People may be very willing to give you the technology, but you just don't have the expertise for you to digest the technology and domesticate it for your own use. And that's no use. So there are two sides of the same coin you got to look at. On one side is a barrier to transfer, the other side is a barrier to adopt.
I mean, I think China has done the world a service in that they're not only producing quite good solar panels, they're also producing not very good solar panels, but that are cheaper. So they can go to countries that can't afford the best.
I used to work in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai in particular. What I observe over there is the lack of energy conservation. People would wash one shirt in a large washing machine. They would be driving around in the evening, just driving around. Something you don't see in Singapore. Is it time for energy to not be cheap anymore? That we actually have to pay more for energy to force people to change their habits into conservation.
Actually, you bring a problem that is also very close to heart in Southeast Asia. It's a problem of subsidy. In the Middle East, a lot of products or petroleum products are subsidized heavily. Very much like our friends in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. So when you have subsidies, what happens is cheap, and the cheaper it is, the less you think about it. Even for those of you who drive, yes, the oil price went up, the pump price went up, 10 cents, 20 cents, another 50 cents. Yeah, you kind of complain about it, but do you change your behavior? The answer is no, you don't really change. You may keep an eye out of it, but you don't. However, that's why our friends in the government and stuff are doing education for the younger generation, which like my son will come to me, hey daddy, you better switch off the lights. Oh, okay.
I used to take the bus and the MRT to NUS, which would take 35 minutes on a good day. Now I'm teaching out at NTU. By public transport, it's an hour and a half. So last week I went down to the local place where you buy a car. I said, hello, I'm Graham, I'd like to buy a car. I said, oh, I like that red one. I said, how much is it? He told me, and I nearly dropped dead. Because I'm used to car prices in the UK, literally for the same car is a quarter of the price. Then I went and filled it up with gas the first time, and it was half the price that I'd pay in the UK. And now I drive to work along the PIE, and it takes 20 minutes to get there. Geography, geology, and lifestyles Now, my lifestyle, I'm not going to spend 3 hours a day commuting. I will buy this car. I have bought this car because I'm in the fortunate position I have a salary that can afford it. And you can afford it, you do it. And I'm afraid it's got nothing to do with efficiencies or green or radiation, or it's very selfish. We are selfish people, aren't we?
Governments have to think not about economic instruments alone, human behaviour. They have to put in the infrastructure, whether that be more buses, more MTRs, more bicycle lanes, or whatever. So, yeah, energy policy is a complex subject.